Thank you, Alan. And thank you to all of the board members of C3AI who are here at this show today. Could I just ask the board members to stand up so we can see that you're here? I don't know of any other company that when the CEO says, I have a travel restriction due to health issues, then the board then comes along and everyone comes to the event to be with the customers. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of resilience of a company. And resilience does matter these days because we live in a crazy world where, being resilient on what's going on is absolutely critical. Now, I've met many leaders in my career, but I just have to say that Tom Siebel is by far the most resilient leader I have ever seen. And I just wanted to use this moment to thank you, Tom, for inspiring us all with the kind of leadership and imagination that drives the future and the conversation these 2 days. You are maybe not here physically, but you certainly are in spirit. Thank you, Tom. Now, I also learned about resilience quite early in my life. When I was 2 years old, I moved to Greenland. It's getting a very popular place these days. And I remember Greenland as being a very, very tough environment. It was cold, it was dark, and it was full of snow and ice, like you see on this picture. I tell you, it was not green at all. I actually believe that the name Greenland is the first example in history of greenwashing. And the good news is that I might get a green card really soon, you never know. Now, one of the things I learned during 7 years of childhood in Greenland was how to overcome a snowstorm. That's a very important thing to learn if you are living on Greenland. Now, some people believe that the best way to do that is to dig in and just wait for it to finish. You can do that, and you'll probably survive. But experienced explorers, they don't just survive. They move on based on 3 very important leadership principles. Number 1, clarity of direction. In a snowstorm, everything turns white. You have no idea what direction is where you're going. If you don't have clarity of direction as you lead yourself through this, you may go in circles and you will definitely not survive. Number 2, they focus on what really matters. In a snowstorm like that, you do not spend your time and energy on things that don't matter. You focus all of your energy on the few things that really matter to get the job done. And thirdly, you team up for success if you have the opportunity. If you are alone, chances of survival are very slim. If you are together, your chances grow dramatically. So, I believe the world today is a little bit like a snowstorm on Greenland. And of course, you can dig in and wait for it to get over, or you can lead with clarity and direction. I think the same is true for AI. And I agree with Tom that we might be at a moment where the snowstorm around AI needs to settle down so we can move on and get the focus that really matters. The hype is over. AI is no longer about hiring some data scientists who will do some project in a corner of the company to learn something. And while ChatGPT is super impressive, in particular in writing poems and emails, it cannot run your company. I believe that this is a moment for a clear direction, which is about how do we make AI not a project or an experiment, but the critical infrastructure of your company at speed and scale. Now, to do that, I try to, as a leader, not to get bogged down by all the noise in the current. I actually spend very little time on the current because it's a lot of distraction. I spend most of my time as a leader on the past and the future. I try and learn from the past, so I constantly improve. And I try and imagine the future, so I can participate in shaping it instead of becoming a victim of it. I often say to my teams, you need to be at the table, not on the table. Now, to do that, I actually went back in history to find technologies that had profound impact in civilization, in societies, in human interaction. And one of the most profound inventions in history is the printing press. In the 15th century, if you had an idea that you wanted to share with someone, you either had to talk to them, or you could sit down and write a book. And if you wanted to do that, you would handwrite the book, or you would pay a monk to do it for you. And as a consequence, knowledge was limited. It was for the few who had the resources to do that. Now then came Johannes Gutenberg, and he imagined a future where this would not be the case. He imagined that we could print a book and make it available at relatively low cost, and with that we could distribute knowledge in ways we had never done before, and so he invented the printed press. Now with that, everything changed. Suddenly knowledge and ideas was available to everyone, everywhere, at very low cost. It ultimately democratized knowledge to be available for everyone. Ideas could be spread everywhere. And this changed everything. It changed governance. It changed businesses. It changed societies. It even inspired some revolutions because we could print and distribute knowledge. Now, what can we learn from that? Well, first of all, some technologies do have the power to change everything. The printing press was one. I believe AI will have the same opportunity. Now, in the case of the printed press, the limitation of this technology was not the invention itself. It was the learning that needed to happen on the end users before this technology could have a real impact. Everyone actually had to learn how to read and write, so entire countries transformed their education system from being for the few to be for the many, and with that, they took advantage of this new technology by educating people to read and write. If you didn't learn how to read and write, you were basically left behind. Now, I believe same characteristics will happen with AI. Like the printed press democratized knowledge, we are now at the edge of AI democratizing intelligence. Imagine what that will do to the world. But there is one big difference: speed. It took 400 years from the invention of the printed press until 80% of the population in the US could read and write and therefore take advantage of this technology. Why? Because we had to educate people to use the technology. And this has always been the dilemma on technology. You know, the computer was invented, and it actually became a mainframe and then scaled to much cheaper versions. And again, the limitation was knowledge. We had to teach people new languages, programming languages, assembly, and then COBOL, and then C and C++. There was even something called ABAP. I don't know if you know that. And now it's Python. It took 40 years before we democratized the compute technology. The same is true for the internet. It took 20 years from the invention of the internet until large populations could use that, because we had to learn HTML and HTTP. And we also had to learn that cookies is not something you eat. And then we democratized the internet with the implications of that. With AI, it took ChatGPT 5 days to reach 1 million people. Why? Well, because this technology is different, ultimately. So far, everything we did was about inventing a technology and then teaching the users how to use it. With AI, it's the opposite. We teach AI how human beings act. We taught it to be a human. And so now it communicates with us in human ways, through vision, through sound, through gestures. And as a consequence, this is the first technology in history where the usage will be instant. The limitation is no longer on educating the user. I am sorry to say that the limitation is now on us, our ability to deploy this technology, to make it available, not educate the user. So we are not off the hook. That is our challenge. Now, to do that, I think we need to do the same as Gutenberg did. We need to imagine a future where knowledge is available for everyone. In AI, we need to imagine the future where intelligence is available to everyone. Now, it is really hard to imagine the future. So what I do when I need to imagine the future is I ask what-if questions. And when it comes to intelligence, I ask the following 3 questions. Number 1, what if AI will be super intelligent? Not average intelligent, where it can answer my questions with some hallucination. Super intelligent. I'm not talking about the broad general AI with large language model, but deep expertise where you get to be better than human beings in a multiple of domain areas. This is not a complete fantasy. It's already happening today. If I look at Siemens in healthcare, the ability to look at a picture of a potential cancer patient is dramatically better done by an AI than a human being. If you want to do protein folding, the AI is a better version of that as well. We can even play better chess and better Go. So in deep domain areas, we begin to see an AI that is more intelligent than a human being. Imagine a world, what if that happens in most areas of expertise? Very deep. What if AI is not just about answering questions, but is able to take action, to actually perform the task, to do it? So instead of asking the AI, when will my asset have a failure, and what do I need to do against it? The AI will analyze the asset, and the task we give it is, please maximize the utilization of this asset. It will analyze, it will identify the needed maintenance, it will order the parts, and it will execute the repair. You will see some of that at the event this week. What if AI will be everywhere? Not just on our screen and our mobile phone, but on our watch, in our glasses, in our cars. What if AI is included in every single piece of hardware that we interact with? Not in the sense that it asks the cloud for the intelligence. What if it is intelligent itself and therefore becomes autonomous and is able to make its own decisions because the intelligence is in the thing? What happens then? This is also not some wild fantasy. This is the autonomous vehicle. It's not going to ask the cloud what to do next. That would take too long. It is capable of making own choices. It is super intelligent, it can take action, and it is in the device itself. What if that happens to be everywhere in our physical world? What happens then? Now, if these 3 what-ifs become true, which I think is pretty likely, then you have to ask yourself the following question. What would that do to my business? Now, if I take the business that I'm in as an example, Siemens, I mean, that future would be pretty cool, okay? If we had intelligence that is better than humans, if we have intelligence that can take action, and we have intelligence that's in every single physical hardware that Siemens ever produced, then Siemens will become dramatically more productive. Siemens will become much more predictive. And Siemens, I believe, will become much more innovative. Let's talk about productivity. I mean, just think about all the stuff we do every day when we go to work. It is crazy what time we spend on answering emails. Now, ChatGPT can begin to answer it for us, and it won't be long before one AI will talk to the other AI on an email, and we don't even have to get involved. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Or when you sit and you have to do your travel expense report. We do so many things every day that's just total waste of time. What if 80% of what we do in a normal day at business could be done by AI? Now, that would be pretty cool. These would be AI agents. This is already happening in software coding, and I predict that this will happen everywhere. The impact of that will be significant. Imagine we'll have half of the employees in a company, they will be AI agents. Let's give them names so we feel they're more human. But they will do all of this stuff that we don't want to do because it's low-value generation. And we as human beings would be able to do the things that really make a difference, supported by AI. Wow. I mean, that would be a much more productive company. Now you look at predictive. Think about how much effort and waste we have when things don't develop like we had planned. I was the chairman of Maersk, the biggest logistics and shipping company in the world. There was never a plan that went exactly like planned. We always had to replan and find new ways, and in fact, the industry earns more money when things go really sour, and the ability to deal with that is just an incredible waste. Imagine if 80% of these unexpected events could be predicted and therefore prevented. It would dramatically maximize utilization of our assets. We would have supply chain resistance in ways we don't even have today. We would have fraud detection when it happens, not a month later. And I still hope that the boardroom will be more predictive, so that in my boardroom, we don't spend the time on reporting the past, but we talk about the future and how we can shape that future based on the predictions of AI. When it comes to innovation, I believe the biggest value will be created. Because AI is now generative. It can create ideas as well. Now, companies adopting digital twins today in their product design or their manufacturing, they already have a 50% reduction on time to market. Now, these models simulate the physical world. They simulate the design of a car and how it drives with the airflows and everything. So we're using simulation tools to predict the physical world and with that, optimize it before we build it. Imagine the next level of that, where we add generative AI to the innovation process. Imagine the conversation with your PLM system when you say, "Dear system, help me design a EV sports car with 4 seats that has a range of 500 miles, a drag coefficient of 0.3, and looks a little bit better than a Porsche 911. Can you imagine where this would bring innovation in any company? Now, all of these examples are not some crazy talk by Mr. Snabe on stage. This is happening. And many of these examples are here in this room. I just want to thank you all who are sharing your success with AI and the value you're creating when it comes to productivity, predictability, or innovation at this conference. Because we all need to learn from each other, because this learning curve needs to be dramatically faster. And I think that is the key question that we need to address. How do we make sure that we deploy AI much, much faster so we can take advantage and get the full business value of this not some hype about what might happen or what may not. Now, to do that, we need to learn from the explorers in the snowstorm again. We need to focus on what really matters. It's all about moving AI from project to an infrastructure. We need to think of AI in the enterprise as a utility that is intelligent, that can do action, and that is everywhere in the company and its physical presence. To do that, I think we need to focus on three things. First of all, we need to master AI ourselves. Yes, we can buy large language models, and we would never train a large language model that costs $200 million to train. But when it comes to our domain-specific experience and knowledge in the company, you need to train your own AI, because that is differentiation. Secondly, we need to start orchestrating across multiple AIs, because otherwise we get inconsistencies and we get irrelevance in the answers. And finally, we need to accelerate dramatically the deployment of AI, because we're the limitation, not the user, when it comes to value of AI. Now, to master AI ourselves, we need to understand what's going on with AI. I still remember the launch of the ChatGPT, and I was on stage here right after that talking about how my son and I was inventing a song of Dire Straits when we were making pizza. And a lot has happened since then. Now, I still remember last year we were discussing, and some people argued there will only be 4 or 5 LLMs in the world because the cost of training is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and therefore there can only be very few companies who will do this, and what will happen if there's so few companies who does that? And I thought to myself, this sounds a lot like IBM in the 50s when they invented the mainframe and said there will only be 4 or 5 mainframes in the world. Man, was that wrong. And the same is true for LLMs. Suddenly comes DeepSeek, and they claim they did the training not for $100 million, but for $5 to $6 million. I don't know if they're cheating on the numbers. Let's say it's 10. It's a factor 10. It's dramatically cheaper. And not only that, it's open source, so you can begin to understand how it's reasoning, and you can build it into your company. Now suddenly, we went from there can only be 4 or 5 to every company beginning to consider building their own. And this will not be a situation where, oh, now we don't need so much compute power. We're going to need even more compute power, because now everyone will do LLMs, and there will be plenty of them. I call this layer the language layer in the enterprise AI stack. The language layer is what can interact with human beings in ways human beings understand to be human. But it cannot run your company. It's not intelligent enough, and the approach is to learn things through language. Now, 3 weeks ago, I was busy doing stupid activities like trying to get my expense report done. I'm not kidding you. So I sat in front of the computer and said, I'm not going to write the email again. So I uploaded 5 receipts to ChatGPT and said, could you please write an email with my expenses on? Make sure each item is listed and convert it all to US dollars and make it in a nice email so I can get my money back from the finance department. Luckily, I didn't send a copy of that answer because the sum didn't add up. Are you kidding me? I said, hey, the sum doesn't add up. He said, oh, I'm sorry. Here's a better version. Now it changed the currency. I had to go through 5 iterations before I got it decently right, and I still had to adjust the sum by $10 before I filed it. You want to run your company with that? Good luck. Why is this? Because LLMs are based on language. They learn math through language. I still remember that in school in Greenland, where it's 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4, 4 + 4 is 8. That's learning math through language. That's a very expensive way to learn math. What you want is a specialized AI that trains on math, only math, and it becomes super deep and very, very smart on math, nothing else. And you want another one that does protein folding, and you want another one that does resilience and predictive maintenance and supply chain optimization. These are domain-specific areas where you don't train it with language. It's way too expensive. And by the way, it's public for everyone. You have your own AI that is specialized with the domains that you need to run your companies. Now, I believe this is crucial. And if you want to run AI in your enterprise, you need to take control of AI, and you need to start training your own domain-specific specialized AI systems. I call this layer the knowledge layer. This is where the knowledge of your company and the uniqueness of your company with the data and information you have becomes true differentiation for your company. They are developed for you in your domain, and you choose, it's almost like instruments that you want to perfect, because that's how you differentiate in the market when you play those instruments. So my first recommendation is master your own specialized domain-specific AIs. This is what gives you competitive advantage and differentiation. Do not outsource that to anyone. Now, if you do that, then you end up in a new problem. Now you need to deal with many AIs. There's the layer of language models where you choose some LLM from the market, the cheapest one maybe, or the best one. Then you have all these specialized domain-specific AIs that you build yourself and you train them yourself behind the firewall with your data. And now comes the problem of orchestration. The user will ask a question through the LLM, and it needs an answer, not from a language model, because it's really bad at math and at predictive maintenance and all of these things. So it will have to be orchestrated to figure out which specialized AI can give me the answer to this question. Maybe I need 2 or 3 of them to work in parallel, and I come back to the user in a dialogue, ideally in an action. I call this layer the orchestration layer. At C3, we call it the agentic AI layer. It is the agent that takes the question, understands it, distributes it to the specialized AI that's domain-specific, and then comes back with the answer and eventually does the action for you. I believe this will be the crucial infrastructure of any AI infrastructure of the future. So this is like the conductor of a symphony orchestra that needs to understand all of the capabilities of the various instruments and help you orchestrate your AI landscape, because there will be more than one AI. Now, the last thing you need to do in order to accelerate the adoption and deployment of AI is to figure out, how do I do this at speed and scale? This is a classical dilemma. You either go for speed and you decentralize the whole thing. Units will be super fast in making nice pilots, but it never scales. Or you go for scale, you centralize the whole thing, and you'll have a lot of scale opportunity, but lots of discussions and no speed. I actually believe you need both. And the only way to do both is through a platform approach. You need to be a dictator on choosing one enterprise AI platform for your company, so that you can decentralize the use of the platform in creating your specialized domain-specific AI capabilities and orchestrate across the entire thing. Now, this platform needs to have 3 characteristics. First of all, it has to be open, because you want to connect it to any AI-relevant technology out there today and in the future, like various LLMs. It needs to have an agentic layer so that you can orchestrate across all of these models and get to relevance and consistency in running your business based on AI. And it needs to be productive. With productivity, I mean how much effort is needed in order to get these things up and running. I normally use a very simple KPI when I look at providers of these platforms. What is the software to services ratio? I come from the world of ERP. In that world, when you buy $1 of software, you're going to need $10 of services. Otherwise, it's never going to work, at least. With C3, it's the opposite. When you buy $10 of software, you only need $1 of services, because we're able to teach you how to use the platform and make it your way. with your skills, not external people. This is super important because you cannot outsource AI for the enterprise. It is your destiny. It is your competitive advantage, and you need to get there before competition. So in summary, to come out of the AI snowstorm better and faster, you need to focus on 3 things. Number 1, train your own AI in domain-specific areas that are relevant for your business to differentiate and stay relevant in the market. Number 2, orchestrate across all of these AIs so that you get consistent and relevant AI infrastructure that is supporting your people and able to take actions on your behalf. And 3, accelerate the deployment by choosing one coherent platform that allows you to build all of these models with one model only in a way where you are the master of where this goes in your company. Now, the last recommendation of the explorers in the snowstorm is teaming up for success. You want to do all of the things I just talked about? You have 2 choices. You can either do it all yourself, which means you will become a technology company, or you can team up for success with someone who has the technology in a world-class way so that you can focus on using AI instead of becoming a technology company. At C3, we believe in teaming up. Tom talked about the partnerships that we have created. These are partnerships with some of the most important technology and services companies in the world today. They chose to work with C3 to get the deployment of AI up and running faster. And most of all, like Tom said, at C3, we believe in teaming up with you, our customers, because our end goal is to enable you to master your AI infrastructure with the tools that we provide, not the other way around. Why is this so important? Well, like the printed press, AI has incredible potential to change everything in society, everything in business, everything in governance. This will be very big, but it needs to be done in a structured way, in a consistent way. And I feel we have the biggest opportunity ever to reinvent entire value chains, not just a single company. And the opportunity for value, not hype, is incredible. Look at automotive. I mean, after 100 years of optimizing the car, we now have an asset that looks really nice. We use it 8% of its life. 92% is standing still, parked somewhere, and we even have to pay for the parking. And when we use it, we're sitting in some queue somewhere, wasting our time. With AI and intelligence, more than humans, everywhere in the physical world, and able to take action, we have an opportunity to develop the ultimate transportation system that is convenient, where waiting is not an option, where we don't park cars anywhere, and transportation will be not only very affordable, it will be instantly available, and it will be sustainable. The same is true for energy systems, where for decades we've been building centralized big power plants to supply power when we know it's needed, to now with AI decentralizing this infrastructure so that we can build energy everywhere on the roofs of houses. And with that, we can actually create a sustainable energy system that is not only available, but also super affordable. I predict energy will always be for free eventually. And healthcare is probably the biggest opportunity of all. Today, healthcare costs are 18% of GDP in the US. With an aging population and the ability and desire to live longer, this system will not last if we continue with the current model. With AI, we have the opportunity to individualize therapy. We have the opportunity to predict failure, healthcare issues, and prevent healthcare issues. So instead of having a system that manages disease, we will create healthier and longer lives at a much lower cost. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, in fact, a leadership moment. This is an inflection point in history. For the first time, we have an opportunity to make intelligence available to everyone, every single human being on the planet, every single human being in your company. AI is not about persuading people to have some opinions about products or policy. AI is not about wasting people's time by connecting them to your social media platform to look at something irrelevant. AI is about making businesses better and societies better. And now we're at that stage where we can do that at scale. To do that, we must have the courage, like Gutenberg, to imagine a future where intelligence makes our companies and our societies better. That, I believe, is the most important leadership skill in this time in history. So let me finish with a quote that has inspired me in my entire career, a quote from Bernard Shaw, who said, "Most people see things the way they are and ask why. I imagine things that never were and ask why not." Thank you.